The story opens with Rhiannon Lewis, a quiet young woman whose soft voice and almost childlike expression make her seem harmless. She avoids arguments, apologizes too quickly, and has spent most of her life trying not to inconvenience anyone. To her coworkers, neighbors, and even her own family, she is the kind of person who fades into the background. What none of them know is that beneath that gentle surface, Rhiannon carries years of resentment. Whenever someone humiliates, ignores, or hurts her, she imagines removing that person from her life permanently. She keeps a private list of names, a secret kill list filled with everyone she believes has made her existence more painful. The list includes the dismissive cashier at the supermarket, coworkers who treat her like office furniture, and her sister Sarin, who rarely answers messages and behaves as though Rhiannon barely matters. Her mother is there too, not because she is present, but because she abandoned the family when Rhiannon was young. Near the top of the list is Julia, the former classmate who bullied her for years and left permanent damage behind. At the beginning of the series, Rhiannon is sitting beside her father in the hospital while he undergoes treatment. He is the one person who has always made her feel seen, and losing him is the thought she fears most. When his condition suddenly gets worse, Rhiannon runs into the hallway and begs a nurse for help. The nurse, however, is distracted by an aggressive man who is arguing loudly and refusing to calm down. Rhiannon keeps asking, but no one responds quickly enough. By the time she returns to the room, her father has died. The shock empties the world around her. She leaves the hospital in a daze, sits inside her car, and finally breaks apart. Grief turns rapidly into fury. In that moment, she does not simply hate the hospital or the man who delayed the nurse. She hates everyone. She wishes the entire world could disappear, so she would never have to feel powerless again. At the funeral, Sarin arrives and sits beside her, but the sisters barely speak. Their silence reflects years of distance. Rhiannon tries to welcome guests and perform the polite duties expected of a grieving daughter. Then she notices Julia approaching with several friends. The sight of her instantly brings back school hallways, mocking laughter, and humiliations Rhiannon has spent years trying to bury. Before Julia can recognize her, Rhiannon turns and walks away. She cannot bear the thought of being observed by the person who once made her feel worthless. After the service, Sarin tells Rhiannon that they need to sell their father's house. Rhiannon is stunned because she still lives there and considers the property the final place where she feels connected to him. Sarin treats the sale like a practical decision that has already been made. The situation becomes even worse when she reveals that Julia, now a successful real estate agent, will handle the listing. Rhiannon tries to object, but Sarin ends the conversation and leaves before she can explain what the house means to her. That night, while riding public transportation, Rhiannon searches for Julia online. She scrolls through carefully staged photographs of elegant clothes, expensive meals, friends, parties, and professional success. Julia appears to have built a flawless life after destroying someone else's confidence. Rhiannon stares at the screen, feeling that the world has rewarded the wrong person. 10 days later, she returns to work at a respected newspaper. No one asks how she is doing. Most of the staff do not even seem to remember that she was gone because her father died. Rhiannon works at the reception desk, answering calls, arranging meetings, taking coats, and performing tasks that make the newsroom function without ever earning recognition. Her boss, Norman, enters and throws his coat toward her, ordering her to hang it up. The gesture is so casual that it becomes another reminder that he sees her as a servant rather than a colleague. Rhiannon gathers the courage to tell Norman that she wants to apply for an open reporter position. She has prepared a resume and believes she deserves the chance to prove herself. Norman looks through the paperwork and rejects her almost immediately. He says she lacks confidence, strength, and the personality required for journalism. Then he hands the documents back and tells her to throw them away. Rhiannon walks out of his office burning with humiliation. At her desk, she grips a box cutter and begins slicing through stacks of paper, each movement sharper than the last. At that moment, a young man named AJ arrives for a meeting with Norman. Rhiannon directs him toward the office and watches through the glass as Norman welcomes him warmly. He laughs with AJ, listens closely, and treats him with the respect Rhiannon has been begging to receive. Soon afterward, Norman gathers the staff and announces that AJ is their new reporter. Rhiannon feels something inside her break. She follows AJ outside, imagining how easy it would be to make him disappear and take the job she believes should have been hers. She reaches into her pocket for the box cutter, but nervousness causes her to cut her own hand. The blade falls and strikes the pavement. AJ hears it, turns around, and sees her standing behind him. Rhiannon panics and quickly invents an excuse. She says she followed him because he forgot to complete an employee form. AJ notices her hostility and awkwardly asks whether he was hired for a job she wanted. Rhiannon forces a smile and says no. She waits until he leaves, then picks up the blade. The moment ends without violence, but it shows how little distance remains between her private fantasies and real action. Later, Rhiannon walks her dog through the neighborhood. A passing car throws a dirty diaper at her, and the people inside laugh as they drive away. Minutes later, she sees a huge billboard featuring Julia in a polished real estate advertisement. Julia's confident smile towers above the street while Rhiannon stands below feeling small and invisible. Without realizing what she is doing, Rhiannon grabs her own hair and pulls until strands come loose. Then she hears the impact of a car. Her dog has been struck and killed by a driver who never stops. The loss devastates her. She buries the dog in the garden beside her father's house and calls Serin, leaving a voice message through tears. She says she is completely alone now. She begs Serin not to sell the house, and especially not to let Julia control the process. Rhiannon insists that Julia has already destroyed enough of her life and cannot be allowed to take the last place connected to their father. Driven by anger, she goes to a nightclub where Julia is celebrating with friends. Rhiannon confronts her and demands that she stop interfering with the house. Julia responds with cold impatience. She explains that Serin asked her to sell it and says she has no personal interest in Rhiannon's life. If Rhiannon is unhappy, that is her own responsibility. Julia dismisses her as though she is still the invisible schoolgirl from years earlier, then pushes past her. The physical contact triggers a painful memory. Rhiannon remembers Julia tearing off her wig at school and exposing the bald areas created by Rhiannon's habit of pulling out her own hair whenever she became overwhelmed. Other students laughed while Julia enjoyed the humiliation. The memory sends Rhiannon out of the club trembling. She ends up beside a lake, hoping isolation will calm her. A drunk man named Ryan Lloyd approaches and begins urinating nearby without caring that she is there. When Rhiannon objects, he mocks her and says he did not even notice her. Those words strike the deepest wound she has. She hits him, and Ryan becomes aggressive. He steps toward her as if preparing to attack. Rhiannon pulls out her blade and stabs him. Once she begins, she cannot stop. Years of shame and fury pour into the violence until Ryan collapses. Horrified by what she has done, she drags his body into the lake and pushes it beneath the water. Back home, she stands before the mirror, shaking. Then she releases a scream that sounds less like fear than years of suppressed pain finally escaping. The next morning, she wakes with dried blood on her neck and only fragmented memories of the night before. Panic takes over. She removes her stained clothes, puts them in the washing machine, and sits on the floor watching them spin as though the machine might erase everything. The doorbell rings. Rhiannon expects police, but it is Craig, one of her father's former co-workers from the carpentry workshop. He gives her an envelope containing financial paperwork because he wants to buy the business from the estate. Rhiannon accepts the documents without knowing how to respond and closes the door. On the way to work, her bus passes the lake. Police officers are pulling Ryan's body from the water. Rhiannon can barely breathe, but she forces herself to continue. At the newspaper, Norman asks the reporters for a major story that could attract readers. Jeff soon arrives with news about the body. The victim is Ryan Lloyd, and the police suspect murder. Instead of hiding, Rhiannon makes a dangerous decision. She will use the crime to become visible. She tells Norman that Ryan was stabbed with a sharp weapon the previous night. To explain how she knows, she claims she overheard passengers discussing it on the bus. Norman is interested, but he sends AJ to the scene instead of her. Once again, she has offered the information and someone else receives the opportunity. Jeff and AJ return with more details. Ryan was stabbed 14 times across his stomach, legs, and arms. Rhiannon freezes, terrified that they have found evidence leading back to her. When they say the police currently have no suspect or useful clue, she relaxes slightly. She glances at Jeff's notes and sees rushed handwriting and symbols she cannot understand. AJ suddenly appears beside her and makes her jump. He says the killer will eventually be caught. Rhiannon replies that many crimes remain unsolved, trying to sound casual while defending the possibility of escape. Later, Jeff calls reception and asks for Norman because he has discovered new information. Rhiannon lies and says Norman is unavailable but instructed her to receive the update. She then enters Norman's office and presents the information as her own. She identifies the victim as Ryan Lloyd and says he lived with his mother. Norman is surprised because Jeff is assigned to the case. Rhiannon invents another story, claiming Jeff's tires burst and someone must reach Ryan's home before a competing paper does. She argues that Ryan's grieving mother may feel safer speaking with a woman. Norman finally allows her to go, but he sends AJ with her. In the car, Rhiannon reacts angrily before apologizing and blaming her emotional state on her father's death. AJ responds with genuine understanding. He says that when his grandmother died, he became angry for months and once kicked a wall hard enough to break his toe. His honesty creates a brief connection between them. At Ryan's home, his mother is initially hostile toward the press. AJ speaks gently, offers condolences, and convinces her that they want to present her son as a human being rather than a headline. She lets them inside. As she talks about Ryan, she says that if she ever finds the monster who killed him, she will tear that person apart. Rhiannon's heart races. Then the mother mentions that Ryan recently had a serious conflict with a coworker named Dave. Rhiannon excuses herself, claiming she needs the bathroom, but enters Ryan's bedroom instead. She finds documents showing that he was fired for misconduct and quietly steals them. Outside, she shows AJ the papers and insists they should question Dave immediately. She comments that Ryan may have been the kind of person who deserved what happened. AJ looks disturbed. Realizing how cruel she sounds, Rhiannon says she only wants a strong story that will impress Norman. Dave is shocked to learn Ryan is dead. He explains that Ryan had become unstable and repeatedly harassed him. Ryan even spread false accusations that Dave was dangerous around children. After coworkers discovered the claims were fabricated, management fired Ryan. The information helps Rhiannon justify the murder to herself. She begins believing that she did not kill an innocent man, but punished someone harmful. While they are driving, Surin messages her. Julia has found a buyer for the house and is already taking the person there. Rhiannon panics and demands that AJ drive faster. She reaches the property first, cleans the bathroom where traces of blood may remain, and retrieves the knife from a hiding place seconds before Julia enters with the buyer. Rhiannon stands quietly while they inspect every room, anger building as strangers discuss the value of the only home she wants to keep. At work, she gives Norman the information gathered from Ryan's mother and Dave. Jeff is furious because she has taken control of his story. Norman decides they will share the article. Jeff protests, but Rhiannon is delighted. For the first time, she is close to receiving public credit. Norman even invites her to join the team for drinks. At the bar, Rhiannon experiences something unfamiliar: belonging. Coworkers include her in conversations, and she eventually sings on stage. For a few minutes, she feels happy. Then police officers enter. Terror returns instantly. Rhiannon runs to the restroom, convinced they are there for her. On the wall, she notices Ryan's name written beside an insult, proof that other people hated him. The graffiti comforts her because it expands the list of possible suspects. Officer Marina enters the restroom, and Rhiannon slips away before the officer notices her panic. Outside, she sees a waitress arguing with a man named Mike. Rhiannon recognizes him as the person who distracted the nurse while her father was dying. In her mind, he becomes directly responsible for the loss. She follows him out of the bar, calls for his attention, and pretends she needs help finding a cat. When he turns around, she attacks him with the blade. This second murder feels different. With Rhiannon was frightened and overwhelmed. With Mike, she experiences satisfaction. She believes she has delivered justice. As she walks away, she sees Julia's face on another billboard and silently decides Julia should be next. The following morning, Rhiannon begins studying Julia's routine. She lists everything Julia possesses that she lacks: friends, career success, money, a beautiful home, and a boyfriend. Jealousy combines with old trauma until murder feels like a solution. At home, Rhiannon empties the freezer and climbs inside to test whether Julia's body would fit. Then Craig calls. He apologizes for not contacting her after a previous date and asks whether she wants to meet that evening. Rhiannon becomes instantly hopeful. She likes Craig and imagines that he may become the partner who finally gives her a normal life. She agrees before he can change his mind. At a supermarket, Rhiannon buys cleaning products. The cashier ignores her while talking on the phone and openly calls her strange. Rhiannon takes the phone and drops it into a cup of juice, then walks away with a calmness that surprises even her. She calls Julia and invites her to inspect the house after it has been cleaned, intending to lure her there at night. Julia says she is busy and suggests the following day instead. Rhiannon adjusts her plans and messages Craig, confirming that she is free. He replies that they can meet at 7. The next day, Rhiannon brings coffee and pastries to the office. She wants to feel like a real member of the newsroom. Then she sees the article about Ryan on the front page and discovers only Jeff's name appears in the byline. She confronts him. Jeff says he wrote the story and she contributed nothing important. He leaves his coffee unattended, and Rhiannon secretly pours a powerful laxative into it. Ryan's mother then storms into the office, furious that the article exposed her son's behavior toward Dave. She says the newspaper has destroyed his reputation. Rhiannon coldly answers that Ryan was not a good person and perhaps deserved what happened. The newsroom goes silent. Her coworkers are shocked by the lack of compassion in her voice. Soon, Jeff becomes violently ill and spends most of the day in the bathroom. Norman sends him home and assigns Rhiannon to cover his responsibilities. She prepares for her date, changes her clothes, and applies makeup. AJ notices and tells her she looks beautiful. He asks whether she is meeting a boyfriend. Rhiannon denies it and says she has business at her father's workshop. Craig arrives late to the restaurant, but the evening becomes romantic. Rhiannon spends the night at his home and wakes feeling that she has finally entered the kind of life other people take for granted. Her happiness ends when Officer Marina calls and asks her to come to the station regarding Ryan Lloyd's death. Marina and the lead investigator, Roy, assure her that it is not a formal interrogation. They are speaking with people who may have been near the lake. Rhiannon says her father and dog died that day and claims she noticed nothing unusual. She carefully presents herself as a grieving woman rather than a suspect. At work, she learns Mike's body has been discovered and that he was killed in the same manner as Ryan. The pattern terrifies her because it proves the police are now looking for one person connected to both crimes. After work, Rhiannon visits Craig's workshop and finds Julia there. Julia announces that she is no longer selling the house to the outside buyer because she intends to purchase it herself. To Rhiannon, this feels like the final invasion. Julia has taken her confidence, her peace, and now wants to own her father's home. Rhiannon storms out but secretly takes Julia's phone. Inside her car, she screams until her voice breaks. Then she slashes Julia's tire and waits nearby. After Craig leaves, Rhiannon approaches Julia with fake concern and offers her a ride. Julia asks for an Uber, but Rhiannon warns that a serial killer is active in the area. Frightened, Julia agrees. When Rhiannon drives toward the house, Julia becomes suspicious. Rhiannon says she needs help examining a dark mark in the basement before the sale. Julia reluctantly follows her inside. Once they are alone, Rhiannon confesses that she is the killer. She says people like Julia create monsters and deserve punishment. Julia tries to escape, and the two women struggle. Rhiannon hits her with a heavy object and believes for a moment that she has killed her. Julia survives. She wakes tied to a chair in the basement. She calls Rhiannon delusional and insists that murder cannot be blamed on childhood bullying. Rhiannon screams that Julia made her hate herself, caused her to pull out her hair, and turned school into a daily nightmare. Julia shows little sympathy. She says Rhiannon is not a victim anymore. She is a serial killer using the past as permission to hurt people. The words strike harder than Rhiannon expects. She covers her mouth, overwhelmed by rage, shame, and the possibility that Julia may be right. Leaving Julia tied up, Rhiannon curls into her father's robe and cries. She later visits Craig and asks whether he has a relationship with Julia. Craig denies it and says he assumed Rhiannon knew Julia wanted to buy the house. While he is distracted, Rhiannon steals the flash drive containing security footage from the workshop. The recording could show Julia entering Rhiannon's car and reveal that Rhiannon damaged the tire. On the bus, a man presses himself too close against Rhiannon. Instead of shrinking away, she puts her hand on his leg and asks whether that makes him uncomfortable. He immediately moves. Rhiannon smiles because she feels she is no longer powerless. At the newspaper, she demands a promotion in exchange for new information. Norman agrees to make her a trainee junior reporter under supervision. Rhiannon then announces that Julia is missing and may have been kidnapped by the serial killer. She refuses to identify her source and persuades Norman to let her lead the story. AJ congratulates her and is sincerely pleased by her success. AJ also tells her about Mike's background. He was a predatory landlord who exploited undocumented tenants and recently forced a mother and child onto the street. Once again, Rhiannon interprets the information as moral confirmation that she killed someone who deserved punishment. AJ asks her to go out after work, and she agrees enthusiastically. Rhiannon contacts Julia's friend Lucille, pretending to be worried because Julia is not answering calls. Lucille is already frightened and gives Rhiannon her number. Rhiannon meets Lucille, Annie, and Paige, and performs the role of a concerned former friend. She promises to help find Julia while knowing Julia is tied beneath her house. Officer Marina begins reviewing nightclub footage from the night Ryan died. She notices the argument between Julia and Rhiannon and sees Rhiannon leaving in anger. The timestamps do not match Rhiannon's earlier statement. Marina attempts to speak with Julia, but learns she has not arrived at work and cannot be reached. Rhiannon visits Marcus, Julia's boyfriend, claiming she is writing an article. Marcus is exhausted and terrified. He says Julia never disappears without contacting him and believes she has been abducted. Rhiannon asks whether they were having problems, but Marcus insists their relationship was perfect. While he searches for a photograph Rhiannon can use, she steals one of Julia's shirts and accidentally spills coffee on the couch. Back at the newspaper, Rhiannon sees her first published article. Her name is finally in print. AJ celebrates with her, and she absorbs the attention she has wanted for years. Then Sarin calls. A buyer named Bill is at the house taking measurements, and Sarin intends to give him a key. Rhiannon leaves work and races home. She snatches the key from Bill and orders him away, making it clear the house is not for sale. That evening, she prepares to meet AJ and wears the shirt stolen from Julia, unconsciously trying to borrow the identity of the woman she envies. From the basement, Julia screams for help. Rhiannon enters and says the shouting is useless because the public now believes Julia vanished. No one knows to search this house. Julia notices her shirt and mocks Rhiannon's appearance, clothing, and makeup. The insults awaken the schoolgirl inside Rhiannon, and she nearly attacks her again. At the bar, Rhiannon meets AJ, but Craig unexpectedly arrives and sits with them. He introduces himself and then asks AJ to leave so he can be alone with Rhiannon. AJ is hurt and walks out. Rhiannon tries to follow, but he is gone. On the way home, she encounters Marcus drunk outside his house. She helps him indoors and secretly checks his phone. The messages between Marcus and Julia reveal constant arguments, jealousy, threats, and emotional control. Rhiannon enters the basement and confronts Julia, calling her relationship a lie. Julia breaks down and admits Marcus is abusive and controlling. She says he is the one destroying her life. Rhiannon is confused because the perfect woman she hated is beginning to look frightened and trapped. Marina reads Rhiannon's article and sees more reasons for suspicion. She explains her theory to a superior. Julia knew Rhiannon in school, disappeared after an argument with her, and was reported missing in the newspaper before Marcus contacted police. Ryan died after Rhiannon left the club, and Mike was last seen at a bar where Rhiannon was present. Marina believes the killings may be Rhiannon's way of forcing the world to notice her. While Rhiannon shares food with Julia, the doorbell rings. Rhiannon threatens to kill whoever is outside if Julia makes a sound. The visitor is AJ. Norman sent him because Rhiannon claimed to be sick and stopped answering calls. She thanks AJ for checking on her, but he says coldly that he came only because Norman asked. A sound comes from inside the house. AJ assumes Craig is there and leaves, disappointed. In the basement, Rhiannon finds a broken plate. Julia claims it fell, then attacks with scissors she secretly obtained. They fight. Julia throws pieces of glass, and Rhiannon responds by striking her with a broom handle. When Julia loses consciousness, Rhiannon places her in the bathtub and tries to revive her. Julia says Rhiannon reminds her of Marcus because he once slammed her head into glass. Rhiannon refuses the comparison. She insists she is punishing bullies, not abusing innocent people. Then she finally asks why Julia tormented her in school. Julia admits she hated herself and wanted Rhiannon to hate herself too. Rhiannon had a loving father, and Julia was jealous. Causing pain gave Julia temporary relief from her own misery. She apologizes sincerely. Craig messages Rhiannon to say police are at the workshop because Julia's car was found nearby. Marina examines the location, notices the security system, and discovers the footage drive is missing. Someone deliberately removed evidence. That evening, Julia watches Rhiannon prepare for dinner with Craig and offers to help with her makeup. For a moment, Julia considers using the eyeliner as a weapon, but she cannot do it. At Craig's house, Rhiannon asks him not to tell police that she saw both him and Julia on the night of the disappearance. She claims she lied to Norman about filming an event and could lose her job. Craig believes her explanation. The next day, Norman assigns Rhiannon a detailed profile about Julia and pairs her with AJ. Rhiannon becomes nervous when she learns Jeff has spoken with Marcus. At a volunteer search gathering, she sees Jeff and Marcus talking while watching her. Marina arrives and asks Julia's friends about Rhiannon. They explain that Rhiannon was never part of their group and that Julia bullied her at school. Marina approaches Rhiannon and praises her for forgiving Julia. AJ is confused because Rhiannon never admitted knowing Julia personally. Marcus then accuses Rhiannon of stealing Julia's shirt from his home and threatens to report her to the newspaper. AJ steps in, but Rhiannon lashes out and says he is obsessed with her. Rhiannon follows Marcus with her knife, intending to kill him. Jeff sees the weapon and runs. Rhiannon chases him into the street, where a bus strikes and kills him. The death is accidental, but Rhiannon knows her pursuit caused it. She goes to the lake to dispose of the knife, then receives a threatening message from Marcus and decides to keep it. Returning to Julia, she proposes a deal. Rhiannon will release her if Julia helps frame Marcus for the murders and punish him for the abuse. The plan is to lure Marcus to one of his properties, place Julia there as a captive, leave the knife within reach, and create a scene that makes him appear responsible. At the house, Rhiannon ties Julia up and triggers the alarm. Marcus arrives and finds her. Instead of helping, he immediately accuses Julia of cheating and collaborating with her kidnapper. He attacks and begins choking her. Rhiannon steps out, says police are coming, and orders him to stop. Marcus breaks down, terrified Julia will leave him. He threatens to throw himself down the stairs. Rhiannon senses Julia may forgive him and decides to remove the risk. She pushes Marcus, and he falls to his death just as police arrive. Marina is among the officers and studies Rhiannon carefully. At the station, Marina says the story makes no sense. Rhiannon claims she discovered the address by accident while investigating Marcus and suspected Julia might be there. She says Marcus threatened both women and implied he killed Ryan and Mike. When Marina displays the murder weapon, Rhiannon identifies it as Marcus's knife. Marina points out that the blade is a specialized woodworking tool. Rhiannon's father was a carpenter, making it likely the knife came from his workshop. Marina lays out her theory. Rhiannon treasured the house because it connected her to her father. When Julia, the woman who traumatized her, attempted to buy it, grief and rage pushed Rhiannon into violence. Rhiannon denies everything and begins crying. Julia repeats the agreed story during her interview. She says Marcus threatened them, possessed the knife, and threw himself down the stairs. Marina's supervisors are unconvinced by her suspicion. To them, Rhiannon appears anxious, harmless, and incapable of serial murder. Without direct evidence, she is released. Julia appears at Rhiannon's home, saying reporters are surrounding her property and she has nowhere safe to stay. The two women go out together and attempt to behave like friends. Julia uses Rhiannon's bank card because Marcus canceled her accounts. Rhiannon dances and feels triumphant, believing she has escaped suspicion and transformed her enemy into an ally. While they are out, Marina secretly enters Rhiannon's house and searches for evidence. She finds the missing flash drive from Craig's workshop. The footage clearly shows Rhiannon slashing Julia's tire. Marina finally has proof connecting her to the disappearance. The following day, Rhiannon and Julia sit on the roof. Rhiannon suggests Julia move into Saren's old room. Then AJ sends a message confessing that he loves her. Rhiannon is overjoyed. She believes she can still build a new life. Inside the house, Marina confronts her. She reveals that she found the footage and says she knows Rhiannon will kill again. Rhiannon no longer pretends to be frightened. She responds with open defiance, showing Marina that the timid receptionist has disappeared. At work, Rhiannon is treated like a hero for supposedly rescuing Julia. Julia joins the staff and speaks about the abuse she suffered with Marcus. During the conversation, she becomes uncomfortable and leaves, assuring Rhiannon she only needs to collect belongings from home. Julia goes to Craig's workshop and discovers he wants to buy the business. He has prepared documents and pressures her to sign. Julia agrees because she fears Craig could tell police that he saw both women during the critical period of her disappearance. Rhiannon ignores Saren's calls at the store. AJ arrives at the house, and Rhiannon tells him she has ended things with Craig. AJ is delighted because his feelings are now returned. The next morning, Rhiannon tries to contact Julia, who has not replied. She leaves a message asking about the bank card because a large amount of money has been withdrawn. AJ then says a police officer friend sent him a photograph of the serial killer's weapon. The moment he sees the woodworking knife, he remembers Rhiannon carrying the same blade around the office. AJ searches the house and cannot find it. His suspicion becomes certainty. Rhiannon finally confesses. She says she did terrible things but has changed, and that loving him gave her a reason to become better. AJ calls her a monster and tries to leave. Rhiannon cries, grabs him, and begs him not to abandon her like everyone else. AJ pushes her away. In panic and rage, Rhiannon takes a kitchen knife and stabs him repeatedly while screaming that she is not a monster. At that exact moment, Saren walks into the house and sees what her sister has done. The season ends there, leaving Rhiannon covered in the consequences of every choice she tried to justify. Her original pain was real. She was ignored, bullied, abandoned, and treated as though her voice had no value. Yet each act of revenge gave her only a brief sense of power before creating a new threat, a new lie, and another person she believed she had to destroy. By the final scene, the woman who once wanted to be noticed has made herself impossible to ignore, but only by becoming the very danger she insisted everyone else created. What makes Rhiannon frightening is not that she begins as someone obviously cruel. She begins as a person many people fail to notice. Her anger grows inside ordinary humiliations. A coat thrown at her desk, a colleague taking credit, a cashier laughing, a sister making decisions without asking, and an old bully returning with the power to sell her home. None of those moments excuses murder, but together they explain the emotional story she tells herself. Rhiannon does not believe she is choosing evil. She believes she is correcting an unfair world one person at a time. Every new victim is assigned a reason. Ryan harassed coworkers. Mike exploited tenants and distracted the nurse. Marcus abused Julia. Even Jeff's death becomes easier to accept because he humiliated her. By labeling people as deserving, she protects herself from seeing the truth that she is becoming increasingly willing to kill whenever someone threatens her pride, safety, career, or fantasy of love. The newspaper becomes the perfect environment for that transformation. At reception, Rhiannon is physically present but professionally invisible. Journalism offers the opposite. A printed name, attention, authority, and the ability to decide how the public understands a person. Once she begins reporting on the murders she committed, she gains control over both the crime and the story surrounding it. She can choose which details appear, which suspects seem believable, and which victims receive sympathy. The more recognition she receives, the more tightly violence becomes connected to success. Ryan's death gives her a chance to investigate. Mike's death creates a serial killer narrative. Julia's disappearance gives her the lead story and the promotion she wanted. Rhiannon begins to associate destruction with advancement, making every professional reward dangerously reinforcing. AJ represents the life she might have lived if she had accepted care without trying to control it. He does not dismiss her grief. He shares his own experience of anger after loss and congratulates her achievements without jealousy. His kindness is not perfect, and he sometimes misunderstands her, but he repeatedly treats her like a real person. That is why his final rejection is unbearable. Rhiannon has convinced herself that love will prove she is not a monster. When AJ discovers the truth, he does not see the wounded child she wants him to see. He sees the bodies, lies, manipulation, and danger. His attempt to leave destroys the final story she built about redemption. Instead of allowing him to choose, she kills him, proving that her idea of love has become possession. She wants someone beside her, but only if that person never judges, exposes, or abandons her. Craig serves a different purpose. He is connected to her father's workshop and therefore to the safe past Rhiannon desperately wants to preserve. His romantic attention makes her feel desirable, yet their relationship is built on omissions from the beginning. Rhiannon uses Craig as evidence that she can still appear normal while simultaneously hiding victims in her basement. She also manipulates his trust to protect herself from the police. When he pressures Julia over the workshop, the story reminds us that Rhiannon is not the only person capable of exploiting weakness. Still, the difference is important. Other characters behave selfishly, abusively, or dishonestly, while Rhiannon repeatedly turns conflict into a decision about who deserves to live. Julia changes more than anyone else in Rhiannon's eyes. At first, she is not a full person. She is the perfect billboard, the school bully, the successful woman with everything Rhiannon lacks. Captivity destroys that image. Rhiannon discovers Julia's relationship is abusive. Her confidence is partly performance, and her cruelty as a teenager came from jealousy and self-hatred. Julia's apology creates the possibility of genuine understanding. For a brief period, their shared secrets even produce something resembling friendship. Yet the relationship remains unstable because it begins with kidnapping and is maintained through fear. Julia helps Rhiannon lie about Marcus because the alternative may be prison, death, or both. When she withdraws money and starts making independent choices, Rhiannon immediately worries she is losing control. Forgiveness is never complete because Rhiannon still expects Julia to behave like property. Officer Marina is the first character who truly studies the pattern rather than the image Rhiannon presents. Others see nervousness and interpret it as innocence. Marina notices timing, relationships, contradictions, and the strange way Rhiannon repeatedly reaches a story before police confirm it. Her investigation also challenges one of the series' central ideas. Society often underestimates dangerous people who appear quiet, awkward, or vulnerable. Rhiannon benefits from stereotypes that assume a serial killer must look confident, physically intimidating, or openly cruel. Marina recognizes that invisibility can become camouflage. The stolen flash drive is especially important because it captures something Rhiannon cannot rewrite with words. She can invent sources, manipulate articles, pressure Julia, deceive Craig, and redirect suspicion toward dead men. Video evidence simply shows her cutting the tire. That small act connects her to the larger crime and threatens the identity she has manufactured. Marina's discovery means Rhiannon's control over the narrative is ending, even before AJ recognizes the knife. Saren's arrival in the final moment brings the story back to family. Rhiannon has spent the season resenting her sister for distance and silence. She wants Saren to understand that the house, their father, and their shared history matter more than money. Yet when Saren finally enters Rhiannon's private world, she does not find the lonely sister asking to be heard. She finds AJ's murder. The scene forces Rhiannon to confront the person whose judgment she feared and whose attention she wanted. It also leaves Saren with an impossible decision: protect her sister, call the police, or risk becoming the next person Rhiannon believes has betrayed her. The house itself functions like an extension of Rhiannon's mind. It begins as a memorial to her father and the only place where she feels secure. As pressure to sell increases, she treats every visitor like an invader. Gradually, the home changes from sanctuary to crime scene, prison, evidence locker, and hiding place. Julia is locked beneath it. AJ is killed inside it, and Marina searches its drawers. Rhiannon believes preserving the house preserves love, but her actions corrupt every memory associated with it. By refusing to let the past change, she destroys the meaning she wanted to save. Her hair pulling also reveals how internal pain becomes external action. As a child, Rhiannon responded to bullying by hurting herself. After her father's death, the direction of violence changes. Instead of tearing at her own body, she begins attacking others. She experiences this shift as empowerment, especially when confronting the man on the bus or humiliating the supermarket cashier. Some of those moments resemble healthy boundary setting, which makes the progression more unsettling. Rhiannon learns that speaking back can feel good, but she cannot separate assertiveness from domination. Soon, every uncomfortable interaction becomes proof that another person is an enemy. The series never asks the audience to deny Rhiannon's suffering. Her father's death is devastating. Julia's bullying was cruel. Norman exploits her labor. Saren fails to communicate. Society repeatedly rewards louder, richer, and more confident people while ignoring someone who is struggling. The tragedy is that Rhiannon eventually receives many things she wanted. She becomes a reporter. Her coworkers know her name. AJ loves her. Julia apologizes. Even Marina recognizes her intelligence and capability. Yet Rhiannon cannot trust any of it because violence has taught her that attention can vanish unless she controls everyone around her. By the end, the kill list is no longer merely a fantasy written by a powerless woman. It has become a method for organizing reality. Anyone can be moved onto it when they disappoint her. The category of bully expands until it includes rivals, investigators, lovers, and friends. Rhiannon's claim that she is not a monster becomes less convincing with every person she harms, but emotionally she continues to repeat it because admitting the truth would destroy the identity she is fighting to protect. The unresolved ending is therefore more powerful than a simple arrest. Saren stands at the threshold between Rhiannon's hidden life and the outside world. Marina has evidence. Julia knows the truth. AJ lies dead. Rhiannon has finally reached the point where no clever article or sympathetic performance can restore the illusion of innocence. Whether she runs, confesses, attacks again, or is exposed, the quiet life she once wanted is gone. The attention she demanded has arrived, but it will come through fear, scandal, and judgment rather than respect. Ultimately, the story is about what happens when pain becomes entitlement. Rhiannon believes suffering gives her special permission to decide who is bad, who deserves punishment, and who must remain beside her. Her loneliness invites sympathy, but her choices remove the possibility of excusing her. The series leaves us with an uncomfortable reminder. Being ignored can wound a person deeply, yet visibility alone cannot heal that wound. Without accountability, honest connection, and the willingness to face grief, the desire to be seen can become a desire to control. And once Rhiannon crosses that line, every attempt to protect herself only makes her more alone. The title's sweetness is therefore deeply ironic. Rhiannon looks polite, careful, and easily frightened, so people assume kindness where there is actually suppressed rage. Each time someone underestimates her, she gains another opportunity to act without suspicion. Yet the same disguise also traps her. Because everyone expects her to remain agreeable, she never learns to express anger before it becomes poisonous. She smiles, apologizes, and stores every insult until revenge feels more honest than conversation. The show uses that contrast to keep the audience unsettled. We may understand why she is hurt, laugh when she finally answers a rude person, or feel satisfaction when an abuser is exposed. Then the story pushes those emotions further and asks where sympathy should end. Rhiannon repeatedly turns understandable anger into irreversible harm. Her victims may be flawed, but she appoints herself judge and executioner without accepting any limit on her power. The final image of Surin, discovering AJ, forces that distinction into the open. Rhiannon can no longer frame the violence as private justice against strangers who deserved it. AJ cared about her, and she killed him because he tried to protect himself. That act strips away her last excuse. Whatever happens after the cliffhanger, her greatest enemy is no longer Julia, Marina, Norman, Saren, or the memory of her mother. It is the identity she created to survive, an identity that now destroys every person who gets close enough to see her clearly. And that is why her final scream feels less victorious than completely, terrifyingly empty.